Hi, I'm Judy O'Bannon. Welcome to a new program about exciting outdoor life in our state. This show will open up the world of our wonderful woods and streams and wildlife, historic sites and parks. The folks at the Indiana Department of Natural Resources and Ball State University have teamed up to bring you adventure and information. So stay where you are and come with us into Indiana's great outdoors.
We're in Grant County, heading into Matthews, home of the Cumberland Covered Bridge, today on Indiana Outdoors. Hello and welcome to Indiana Outdoors. I'm Jill Ditmire.
And I'm Don Van Meter. We're standing next to the newly restored Cumberland Covered Bridge near Matthews in Grant County.
Later in the show, we'll learn more about this gorgeous span of wood. But first, we take you to the covered bridge capital of the world in Parke County, Indiana.
We attended the annual Covered Bridge Festival and saw some, but not all, of the 32 bridges on the tour.
This is a great opportunity to sample some of that wonderful Hoosier hospitality that people talk about. There are lots and lots and lots of festivals, and we wanted something to be unique, and that's the most unique thing about Parke County, is these 32 covered bridges. Some other areas where they've been destroyed, they've been torn down to put in new modern bridges. We have a wonderful heritage here, and that's one of the best things that we have to show. We encourage people to go out and see as many bridges as they can and go out through the countryside, see some of this beautiful scenery that we have.
I like doing the tours because, number one, you meet people from all over. I've probably met in 10 years people from all 50 states and from several foreign countries. I like meeting people and talking to people. I'm proud of the heritage of the bridges. I think it's something that shows that good workmanship and pride in your workmanship means that something will last for a long time. And I'm not sure that everybody and everything is built that way today. It seems like we live in a recyclable economy where everything is built to automatically fall apart a few years down the road, so you have to replace it. Bridges, when they were originally built, were not covered. They built open plank bridges for simplicity's sake, and they did not last very long. It was prior to the invention of modern wood preservative methods, and the bridges would rot and deteriorate within a relatively short period of time. And the folks noticed that their houses and barns were lasting longer than their bridges were, and they figured out that it was probably the roof was protecting them, and that maybe if they installed a roof over the bridge, that the bridge would last longer. Covered bridges were constructed higher than the road grade. This was to allow floodwater to flow around the covered bridge when the water was high after a large rain. The bridge would then be protected from flooding and would be able to withstand higher floods than if it was built at grade. This is the McAllister Bridge, built in 1914 by J.A. Britton. J.A. Britton was one of two major covered bridge builders in Parke County, along with J.J. Daniels. This bridge crosses Little Raccoon Creek and is 126 feet long. This is the Neat Covered Bridge. We like to think all of our covered bridges are neat, but this one actually is named the Neat Covered Bridge. It was named for the Neat family that owned the land around the bridge when it was constructed. It was built in 1904 by J.J. Daniels. J.J. Daniels is the second of our two major bridge builders here in Parke County. Weight of the bridge is transferred to the abutment with the Burr Arch. The Burr Arch is named for Theodore Burr. He was a cousin of Aaron Burr, one of our country's forefathers. He was considered the father of modern bridge building in the United States. Underneath the bridge is where the Burr arches come in and attach to the abutment on each side of the stream. As the bridge has weight put on it, the Burr arch pushes against the abutment and actually becomes stronger and supports the entire weight of the bridge. This is the Bridgeton Bridge sitting at the edge of the small town of Bridgeton. This bridge is 245 feet long. It's a double-span, Burr-arch constructed bridge built in 1868. It was bypassed in the early 1960s with a newer bridge. This is one of the most photographed covered bridges in Parke County. It's one of the most well-known covered bridges, sitting here next to the grist mill that's been here since 1871. And with the mill dam below the bridge, it's highly popular for tourists to come and see and for people to take photographs. The portal, or the doorway or opening of the covered bridge, is the signature of the covered bridge builder. Normally they painted the name of the bridge builder on the bridge, but also as an added method of allowing people to know who built the covered bridge, each bridge builder had a separate portal that he used, so people driving through the bridge would know that he had built it. Proper workmanship and pride in your work will go a long way in maintaining quality, and maintaining something that's valuable down the road to other people.
We hope they had a wonderful time here, and that the last thing they say is, I want to come back next year.
Earlier, I had a chance to talk to the Matthews resident who knows the most about the Cumberland Covered Bridge. Larry Barnett may be hard of hearing, but he certainly had the vision and know-how to get this bridge restored. Larry walked me through the bridge and told of its fascinating history. The signs say it was built in 1877, but documents say 1879. But the most dramatic year of its history was 1913. Tell us about the flood and what happened to this bridge when the floodwaters came through.
Well, the bridge in 1913 was sitting right on this abutment right down here. Okay, so the flood rose up and the water built up on the bridge, descending them off the abutment first, it swung around, went down the river, and stopped down behind the cemetery against a tree on this bank on this side of the river.
Wow.
When it stopped down there, it seemed like the damage was minimal. So, but the people thought the bridge was gone.
So how did the bridge get back to where it belonged?
And a guy from there, him named George Lemon, he said he could bring the bridge back up. So he moved the bridge back up on this road here, which is Front Street, clear up to the Young Highway thing. And that time was houses stuff all along here. It used to be a doctor's office right here. But the flood did not touch it. So they pulled up with horses. They brought back up with rollers, cap stands, brought the bridge up here. And somehow they turned the bridge around with the road. And they pulled the bridge back across the river. And then when they done that, they brought the abutment up about 2 feet and built the bridge up. And as you can see, it was shut down in, and the bridge could not wash out.
Yeah, they didn't want to risk another flood, did they? No. This bridge has had a lot of bad luck, Larry. You say heavy snow caved in the roof in 1973?
The roof fell in, caved in 1973. Snow caved in, and they finished turning the roof off. We put trusses on the roof. Then by that time, we discovered that the bottom chords was rotting out over each abutment. Then they had that fixed. Then a few years, they really done fix the problem.
Now, in 1999, the entire town pitched in and restored this covered bridge.
1995, we organized the Covered Bridge Historical Society and started pushing things around. We had a county commission work with us real good. They was all for it. We worked with them. So the county applied for a TEA grant. October 98, 97, something, we got that grant, and which was $500,000. That's all federal government money, but it was 80-20, 20% county funds, 80% federal funds.
Sure.
So then the bids let out in 99, they started working on the bridge.
They did a wonderful job. The restoration is absolutely beautiful, and thank you for sharing the history of this bridge with us and our viewers today. Thank you, Larry, very much. You may wish to visit Indiana's covered bridges during festival season. The Cumberland Covered Bridge Festival is held the weekend after Labor Day in Matthews, And the Parke County Covered Bridge Festival is held for 10 days in the middle of October every year. Our next story is located a few counties to the east. Jean Stratton Porter, one of Indiana's most famous writers, set many of her books in the Limberlost Swamp near Geneva.
That great swamp was drained over 100 years ago, but now it's being restored, at least in part.
Indiana Outdoors visited the swamp, which is now called the Loblolly Marsh and is located in southern Adams and northern Jay counties.
I had not thought that anyone would seriously contemplate devastating such a fair heritage from God as to run a great ditch through my working territory that would dry up each spring and brook of running water.
When Mrs. Porter came to Geneva, this huge 13,000-acre wetland was already being drained. She really could not stop this from happening. Even though it was her beloved Limberlost, she couldn't stop the drainage project from moving forward. So later, there was more of a push to drain it after gas and oil was found. And more timber was taken out. This whole wetland area was assaulted pretty bad at that time. Well, Mrs. Porter took all the photographs she could, she wrote about it, and that's where her books became so famous. And now we get a lot of people come here. They want to see the big swamp that Mrs. Porter wrote about. When they come, it's all drained. And that's where this project began. We're trying to restore at least a part of that and show what the area was like when she came. Our whole goal is to connect the Loblolly Marsh Wetland Preserve with the town of Geneva, with the Limberlost State Historic Site, either with a trail or with contiguous wetlands. We purchased the Loblolly Marsh Wetland Preserve in '96 and '97. So tiles began to get broken in early in '97 when we started our restoration work. And by early '98, we had water restored on some of the land already at that time. There's a number of different kinds of wetlands that we have in this area. A swamp is a forested wetland, and historically that was more towards town of Geneva. A marsh is a wetland that has emergent grasses, so we've got plants coming up. And if you look out at this wetland, you'll see there are burr reed. That's a type of plant that's growing here. You get cattails and bulrushes and sedges. That's the difference in a marsh. It has more emergent grasses rather than trees. Then there are pothole areas. Most of them are closed systems and there's no outlets. They're surrounded by grasses and swampy type trees. It's really an excellent wildlife place. The wildlife that we have is really growing in leaps and bounds. Wintertime, we see a lot of marsh hawks out here. I've seen American bittern here and green heron, great blue heron. We're going to use this for educational purposes. We have students come from area schools. We take them, especially to this wetland here, we take them out here and do aquatic insect studies. They learn about what's in the wetlands, why those insects are in there. We've got 80 acres that people can hike, reasonably hike this area. They can come through the woods we're standing in right now. They come through here, and it's about a 1.5 mile trail. You can walk all the way around our largest wetland and enjoy it. At this point, we've restored 428 acres. In 2000, we just purchased another 151 near the town of Geneva. The whole thing rests on whether we get funds to do it. Our largest source of funds has been the Indiana Heritage Trust program. The Eagle Plate, the license plate, environmental plate, whatever you want to call it. Indiana Heritage Trust, you can't find another project that has so much of Indiana. Gene Stratton Porter is Indiana. The Limberlost is Indiana. 50 years from now, this Loblolly Marsh will have more native grasses on it in some of the areas. It'll have more trees. You know, some of our uplands, we're seeding it with acorns and walnuts and hickory nuts. We have students planting native wildflowers. So in our grassland areas, we're going to have a lot more of the wildflowers like bergamot and cardinal flower. We've brought some of that back in. But most of the area, the wetlands, once you get water on them, like the one behind me here, they won't change a lot. You'll get more willows growing around them, but the actual vegetation will stay pretty well the same. I'd like to welcome everyone to come to the Loblolly Marsh Wetland Preserve and the Limberlost State Historic Site in Geneva. They're both open to the public. There's no cost to tour either one. I hope you join us.
If you're interested in visiting this beautiful piece of land, call the Limberlost State Historic Site at 219-368-7428 or on the web limberlost@adamswells.com.
Today we're on the Mississinewa River, but we're not too far from the headwaters of one of Indiana's great rivers, the Wabash.
Indiana Outdoors reporter Tracy Stevens covered a fish survey on the Wabash River.
So, how does the Department of Natural Resources know how many and what types of fish are in Indiana's rivers, lakes, and streams?
They count them.
Here's what Tracy found.
For the first time ever, the Wabash River was surveyed by the Department of Natural Resources in order to provide a comprehensive assessment of its fish community. They used a method known as electrofishing, where electric currents draw fish out and briefly stun them.
Electrofishing doesn't harm the fish, it just temporarily stuns them, long enough for the DNR researchers to make their observations.
What we're doing is a fish population survey of this section of the Wabash River. We're trying to get an idea of the kinds of fish that are out here, how many there are, and what sizes are. It'll basically give us a picture of the kind of fishing opportunities that we can find in this section of the river.
We saw a couple nice ones like that. Got away from us.
It'll give us a complete picture of the river from its top all the way to the bottom. So I think it's going to be important for that point of view. But another aspect, it'll be the basis for any kind of fish management things that we want to do in the future. We use their fishing license money to pay for this survey, so it's like a service that we're providing that not only will we get them good information that they can use, but the information is something that we can use to better manage it in the future. take all the data that we collect from this survey as well as many other surveys that we do on other rivers and lakes all across the state and write that data up in terms of reports and make that available for fishermen as well. It'll be important for other resource agencies that are monitoring the other aspects of the river as well in terms of some of the water quality issues. I think in general, fish populations are a good indicator of the health of a river. So over time, we would hope as there are improvements in the water quality that we would also then see improvements in the quality of fishing out here. So there'll be ways that other people can look at this information and just see how the river is changing over time. I think it's going to be important to look at that in the future, that we want some crews to come back here and hopefully as there's been some environmental improvements in terms of reducing the amount of runoff of sediments and nutrients and siltation into the river, that we'll actually see the water quality improve. Once that happens, then we should be able to see some improvements in the quality of fishing.
So far, there haven't been too many surprises in this fish survey. Researchers have netted carp, red horse, channel catfish, and drum. Yum.
Larry Barnett has been the resident covered bridge expert for over 30 years. In 1973, he spent 300 hours building a scale model of the Cumberland covered bridge, 1 inch to 1 foot. His model has been useful as a reference for repairing and restoring the bridge.
Our final story today comes from Granger in far northern Indiana near the Michigan border.
Now, when you think of Indiana agricultural products, you probably think of corn and soybeans. Well, Indiana Outdoors found Jerry Shaw producing something sticky and sweet.
One-third of everything you eat depends upon honeybees. I'm Jerry Shaw, Granger, Indiana, and right now we keep bees. I have 7 million employees, of which I have to furnish housing, I have to furnish medical attention to them, and I have to furnish everything to them. The only qualifications you have to be a beekeeper is dumb and rich. You're probably dumb for keeping bees because you don't get rich doing it, and you have to be rich to buy all the equipment and the upkeep on them. Well, the very first thing you have to have is a veil and a smoker and a hive tool. Then you have to buy the supers, the brood chambers, the bees, bottom boards, top boards. Basically, when we collect honey in the field, we do that once a year in the fall. We go to the bee yard, and we use what we call stink boards or fume boards with a substance on it called bee-go or honey robber. And it's basically a frame that goes on top of the hive with a cloth inner cover and a ideally black sheet metal top. We sprinkle this bee-go on there. We puff them with smoke a couple times to start the bees to move down, basically so we don't get the daylight stung out of us. A bee communicates by odor. They put out a pheromone, different pheromones that tell bees different things. So what we do is puff smoke in there, which kind of covers up or masks over the pheromone that they put out, and they don't get the messages. Then I weigh them in. That one weighs just exactly 300 pounds. Then pull them off of here, set them up here. I separate this later, separate the propolis from the beeswax, sell the propolis and melt the beeswax down. This is what a full comb of honey looks like. You can, there's the honey. I can do just about a ton of honey a day. After we uncap the honey, we have a mixture of cappings, which is basically light wax, and honey. And I have a mesh in the bottom of my uncapping tank where the honey can run through and go on out to my sump where it eventually ends up in a barrel. We put it in the extractor, it spins, slings the honey out. Okay, I gotta give this a little flip to get it started. And it'll be throwing honey out on all sides of the extractor. We strain it through a basic tea strainer, and it goes over a baffle or two, and a lot of the stuff is taken out. The stuff I'm talking about is wax or comb particles or maybe a stray bee here or there. From there, we strain it through cheesecloth into bottling drums. We make candles, different variety of candles. It takes 7 pounds of honey to produce 1 pound of wax. Eventually, we'll process this piece of wax into something like this. And these are hand-dipped candles. It takes about 30 to 35 dips on these candles to get a candle this size. We make pollen. We put honey and nuts together. We make creamed honey, comb honey. We have mustard honey, honey mustard. We make goat's milk honey soap. We don't make this, but we buy it and sell. Honey sticks, which is flavored honey in a little plastic straw. We sell plain old beeswax. We have hand lotion. I make a propolis ointment, which is a great propolis ointment. We do pollination. Oh, they're neat little critters. I just like to play with them and multiply them, breed queens, raise honey. There's really interesting. They reward me back.
I don't know about you, Don, but that story made me hungry. Let's go for some biscuits and honey.
Oh, that's fine with me. That's our show for today. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're buying, right?
No, not this time. It's your turn.
Indiana Outdoors can be used as an educational tool in the classroom or at home. If you'd like a copy of the program you just watched, call 1-800-252-WIPB or send a check or money order for $10 payable to WIPB-TV. Mail to Indiana Outdoors, WIPB-TV, Ball State University, Muncie, Indiana, 47306. Be sure to note today's program number on the screen.
If you would like to learn more about Indiana Outdoors or the natural resources and recreational opportunities in this state, check out our website at www.indianaoutdoors.org. Meet the staff. Preview upcoming programs. Find out which stations carry the show and when you can view it. Send us your comments on email from this website. Let us know what you think of our show.